to the Peerless Watercolor channel. Today we are going to be making palettes and doing a basic study of a color wheel, and I also have my amazing 3-year-old son True helping me out, and he is going to be painting Dinosaur Valentine's Day cards. So we'll get started. Alright, for your supplies, you are going to need a pen and pencil, double-sided tape, scissors, a Peerless Watercolor Complete Edition packet, and a palette. So we can either use the plastic palette or make a palette like we'll show you in the video. Alright, so for the palette, I had True pick out the colors that he wanted, which of course were all of them. And it worked out kind of perfect because I was making a color wheel anyway. So all you're gonna do is cut a strip off of your saturated watercolor sheet and then double side tape it to an extra piece of watercolor paper. And I have taped mine into my sketchbook, and then True has a separate piece of watercolor paper that is going to act as his palette. Painting, and we're going to be using a water reservoir paintbrush. So all you do. I know, buddy. I bet we gotta show them. You just open it, put water through it, and then when you're ready to go, you just squeeze, and the water comes out the end. So we're doing a swatch. I'm gonna do a swatch of each one, bud, so you know what colors you have, okay? Nice colors. I know, bud. Let me get your colors. And I like for him to put a little puddle so we can pick up the paint next to it. Well, I'm just doing a swatch of each color that we have, and when you're using those water reservoir brushes, it's just going to take a little bit of practice to know the correct amount of pressure to put as much water as you want so you're not completely saturating your little square of Peerless watercolor and not getting the whole thing wet at the same time. And here you can see how easy it is for True to pick what colors he wants on his paint palette and use a little bit of water to saturate the paintbrush and bring it over to his painting. Okay, so now for more of a traditional palette, you can use it the same way you use other watercolors. Is pretty much we're building out the palette with our paint, but instead of going directly from our watercolor sheets, I'm kind of getting enough water on my actual watercolor brush and then picking up the paint and then putting it into a puddle on that plastic sheet. This way is super convenient if you're using a bigger painting and a bigger piece and having a larger quantity of a color already ready for you. But if you're making something small and travelable, I do prefer using the water brush like True uses, just because I think they're a little bit more convenient for smaller size, and you're not having to refill the water. And if the water gets dark and muddy and kind of cloudy and start tainting your other lighter colors, you don't have to rinse it. You just kind of squeeze your watercolor brush and all of that paint kind of goes through it and you're good to go. So there's that. So now we are ready to start painting on our little seed of life. And what I'm using is my water reservoir brush, and I'm actually picking up the paint on the paint palette in my watercolor journal and then just bringing it over to the other page, which is my watercolor paper that I have my art on. You can see how I press the tube a little bit to release a little bit more water to make it more of a free-flowing watercolor, and just filling that whole area and then lifting the brush up and working back towards my palette. You can see as well, if you want to add a little bit more darker or a shadow, you can even pick up a more concentrated amount of paint on your palette and kind of put it in the corners. And so I'm going to be moving to the orange now, and I want it to be a little bit of a darker orange, so I'm using the red and the orange together, mixing on my page and bringing it all the way over to the artwork again. So I want to zoom in here a little bit, and can you see where the red and the orange meet? There's this tiniest little speckle of white paper still left. The reason I did that is because I didn't want the red to bleed into the orange. Whenever you have really sharp edges like that with watercolor, if they touch and they're still wet, the water is going to make a transition of color. So the red is most likely going to bleed and transition into the orange because it's a darker tone, and which is beautiful in a lot of different things, but you want to be aware if you want to have a sharp defined line is you want to leave a little bit of an edge so your watercolors aren't blending together. So now we're just working around the outer petals of the seed of life, and we're just gonna do it as a basic rainbow. So from red to orange to yellow to green to blue and to purple. Once you're done with those outer petals, you want to let them dry before you move on to the next one, just so you can have that sharp, crisp edge that I was talking about. And so we're going to check up back on True and see how he's doing. What are you doing now? For me? Oh, thank you. The sound effects really make it, huh, bud? And get some more color. So now we are going to do our second ring of petals, and what I am doing either on my paint palette or on my page palette in my book is I'm mixing the red and the orange together to kind of make a secondary color of those two. So I'm gonna go around and fill all the petals in that way. So there'll be an orange yellow, a yellow green, a green blue, and a blue purple, and a red purple. So for this next ring, we are going to be doing complementary tones. So I'm going to be starting in the purple red, kind of behind the petals, and the complementary color to a purple red would be the yellow green. So you're going to be working around and doing the complementary color complete opposite side of what the one you're working on. So the reason we do this too, with doing any kind of watercolors, knowing your color theory and the complementary colors helps so much, because if you would like to neutralize a tone instead of like adding more water to it, and you want it to kind of be more like still the same amount of paint on the page, but a darker tone of the same thing, and without putting a black, you can put a complementary tone and it just makes it a whole depth darker. And when we get more into that in later episodes, it's like one of my favorite things for color theory to do. And I actually came up with this kind of a little bit more too because I've been hairstylist for over 12 years. So the way that we do any kind of hair and pulling warm tones and cool tones and the kind of the mauve colors we can get, and like neutralizing in platinum blondes, goes along the same principles as when you're doing the watercolor. So that's why when you have this little seed of life, the way that I laid it out, it's so convenient as a quick reference to know which side is your complementary tone for any color in the rainbow. For the last petals, and the very seed in the very center, I'm going to be doing the same color that is on the outside petal of the rainbow opposite of it. So you can see the yellow and yellow on this side, the red and the red, and next to that on the very top is going to be green. And so I'm just going to be working my way around the whole rainbow again. And this one, so these little petals next to it aren't completely dry, so you can see that I even left the tiniest little sliver of white, and that is just going to get filled in with the next pass, just as I kind of am more comfortable laying down the watercolor next to that inner petal. And I know that the petals aren't going to blend together because that one next to it is completely dry. But so that's another way you can cheat to kind of like save time if you're kind of going a little bit faster and you don't want to wait for your next layer to dry. You can kind of work that way too. as you can imagine, True is done way before I am, and he has run away somewhere. But I wanted to show you how easy of a cleanup it is. This is literally his work area. Everything is dried. Putting those away, I put a piece of paper down, but it's not like it's acrylic or, you know, oils where they're gonna be completely wet in about 5 minutes. It's all gonna be dry, and you're just gonna toss it. So I'm gonna show you one of my favorite tricks that I have been doing for years is highlight with a white gel pen. And if any of you are 90s kids like I am, your love for gel pens runs very deep, and you will appreciate this very much. But yeah, I just kind of go around, highlight any kind of bits, little pieces. You can kind of use it as a correcting tool, but not for a big area. Just like maybe if a spot came out of your line a little bit and you're looking for those really sharp details, little cute highlights and little dots and speckles. But you know, leave it up to the artist. And if you like it, you like it. So I personally love my little white highlighter. And so we're getting pretty close to the end. And yeah, we'll just kind of do a little recap in a minute, and I'll touch back with you. Thank you for joining us today. We had a lot of fun. Make sure you subscribe for more videos, and we will see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.